Hello everyone, welcome back to Fitness, Nutrition and Soul channel. As I said, we're going to learn about what is carbohydrates, what are the different types of the carbohydrate, how does the carbohydrate digest and absorb in the body, and what are the different metabolic pathways, and how you can make the diet plan and see how much carbs you need in your diet. So let's start with the what are the different types. So the very first one, like, it's divided into the simple and the complex carbohydrates. So the simple carbohydrates is the one which digests pretty quickly in the body. It does not need to process by your small intestine. So take an example of sugar. Sugar is pretty easily digestible. And then you got the complex carbohydrates, which is found in the grains and in the some of the vegetables, which body actually has to work hard to break it down, and so it takes time, generally around 1 to 4 hours. So that's why it's called the complex carbohydrates. So the simple one, because it's really easily processed, it spikes your blood sugar level. But the one with the complex, because it takes longer to digest, so the body does not spike the insulin level that much. So let's start. So the carbohydrates is generally divided into, the smallest one is the monosaccharides, so which is your glucose, fructose and the galactose. So these are they are made in 3 different colors so you guys can recognize. So that's the glucose, which is found in the your vegetables and in most of the grains and stuff. And then you got the fructose, which is found generally in the fruit. And then you got the galactose, which is found in the dairy. And then you got the disaccharides. So disaccharides, it means di means 2, so that means it's the 2 saccharides of the monosaccharides. So you got the maltose, which is the glucose plus glucose, which is generally found in barley. So that's the 2 molecules of the glucose, that's your maltose. Then you got the sucrose, which is the glucose plus fructose. Sucrose is the sugar, you eat it, found in the sugar cane. Lactose is the glucose plus galactose. So lactose is found in the milk. Then you got the fiber. There are 2 different types of fiber. Actually, there are more than 2 types of fiber. Then you got the soluble fiber. One is soluble fiber, and another one is the insoluble fiber. So the soluble one is the one which dissolves in the water, and the insoluble one which does not dissolve in the water. So the soluble fiber is good for the blood lipids, such as your cholesterol and the heart health. And the one does not dissolve in the water, which is insoluble, it's good for the bulk. It increases stool quantity, and so it helps with the bowel movement. So the sources for the insoluble fibers are oats, barley, legumes, and the sources for the insoluble fibers are whole grains, bran, and vegetables. And then the next one is the resistant starch. The resistant starch one is the one which your small intestine cannot break it down, then it enters into the large intestine, which we'll discuss further. Alrighty, then you got the polysaccharides. Polysaccharides is the large number of the glucose or monosaccharides combined together, and that's how the polysaccharides, that's all the complex carbohydrates. It's pretty much glucose units linked together in a branch chain or unbranched chain found in the food. It's called the polysaccharides. So let's see, how does the carb digest in the body? The moment we eat any carbohydrates, it starts pretty much straight in your mouth. But because we don't hold too much in the mouth, so it doesn't get processed a whole lot. So the digestion starts in the mouth by the salivary gland with the help of amylase, which is the enzyme to break down the carbs, into the smaller polysaccharides and the maltose. And then it goes to your stomach. In the stomach, the digestion doesn't happen much of the carbohydrates. Actually, the stomach acid, HCl or hydrochloric acid, it holds the process for a while till the carbs enters into the small intestine. And then your starch actually convert into the smaller polysaccharides and the maltose with the pancreatic amylase, which is produced by the pancreas and enters into the small intestine by the pancreatic duct. Then from there you got the smaller peptides, then converts into the disaccharides and then into the monosaccharides. So you got your maltose, sucrose and lactose, which we looked into the disaccharides, and there needs the enzyme to break it down to make it into the mono. As we learned in the protein in the last one as well, that you got tripeptides, dipeptides and the monopeptides. So the body actually has to break it down, everything to the mono, to the single unit, so for absorption. So with the help of the maltase, which is an enzyme, your body breaks down glucose, into mono, then sucrose into fructose and glucose, your lactose into the galactose and the glucose with the help of lactase. So and then some of the dietary fiber doesn't digest in the whole small intestine, then it enters into the large intestine where it produces short chain fatty acids. As I've learned, most of the absorption happens in the small intestine. Most of the digestion happens in the small intestine, and then after the polysaccharides converted into the disaccharides and then into the monosaccharides. So very small quantity through the lining of the stomach happens in your mouth, and then most of absorption happens in the small intestine. And then monosaccharides, which is the end product of the carbs, it enters into the capillaries of the intestine villi, which I explained in the protein video as well, that how the intestine, they're like a finger-like structure, and how they're connected to the liver via the capillaries, and enter the capillaries of the intestine villi, and then it travels to the liver via the portal way. So, and then the liver gets the your glucose, fructose and the galactose. So for glucose is pretty much already been getting absorbed by the body, but the liver has to process the galactose and the galactose and the fructose to glucose. So liver does a lot of jobs, guys. And then so let's talk about how does the processing of the carbohydrates happens in the body. So every time when we eat the carbohydrates, the pancreas increase. So after the absorption of the glucose, it enters into your blood, which is called the BGL, blood glucose level. The pancreas deducted and it releases the insulin level. So that insulin level actually brings down the blood sugar level to the normal level. So it shuttles to the your liver glycogen to your muscle glycogen, and if they're both full, then to the fat cells. So it is produced by the pancreas by the beta cells. Then the opposite of the insulin is the glucagon. So for example, if you haven't eaten the carbs for 4 hours, 5 hours, whatever the amount of hours, and your blood sugar level, so that your blood sugar level doesn't drop down, the pancreas produces the glucagon hormone. So what glucagon hormone does is it actually tells the liver to take the storage glycogen from the body, from the liver, from the muscle, so that to stabilize the blood sugar level. Body is very elegant in that regard, so that we don't have the hyperglycemia and the hyperglycemia, and that generally happens with the hormones of insulin and the glucagon. And so what happens in the with the insulin resistant is that if you're really overweight, if you have been eating too much simple carbs in your life, though that's still not been approved though, but pretty much if your cell becomes resistant to the insulin, that for example that this insulin is like a key. So this is a cell, for example, insulin will open the key and then the transportation of the glucose will happen. But what happens with the person when the person becomes a diabetes, that insulin is coming, but the cell is not letting it open. So the cell is actually depriving of the nutrient. So the body is actually the pancreas even try to produce more insulin, and so the BGL remains high because of that. And yeah, so in the diabetes type 2, the bodies produce the insulin, but the cell become resistant to it. But in the type 1 diabetes, which is the autoimmune diabetes, in that one, the actually pancreas doesn't produce the insulin much. I hope you guys getting it. I think I'm speaking too fast. But if you have any question, just put it in the comments and I will help you. Then now let's have a look at how much we need. According to the Australian dietary guidelines, 45% to 65% of your calories should come from the carbohydrates. Now the different theories out there. Some says you don't need that much carbs because it's not essential nutrients. Some believes that it provides the energy, especially for the brain. So there are different theories out there. So personally, what I believe is that the carbohydrate is required in the body. As I've mentioned before, that I'm not in the favor of eliminating any macro. And so the way I make my diet is I take 1 gram of protein per pound of my body weight, 0.5 gram of fat per pound of my body weight, or 0.4 to 0.5, and then whatever the rest of the calories I need, I will take it from the carbs. So 1 gram of carb is equal to 4 calories. So generally, for the bodybuilding or for the fitness lifestyle, it's recommended 2 to 7 grams, depending how your body is performing. So I'm at the moment around 4 to 5 grams, and then depending how my body is adapting or performing or changing in the weight, I increase or decrease the carb according to my goal. So that's pretty much, guys. And then you got the glycemic index and the glycemic load. So the glycemic index is the one which spikes your blood sugar level. So for example, if you eat 50 grams of the oats, and then if you eat 50 grams of sugar, so the sugar which is going to spike your blood sugar level, it's going to be on a high glycemic index. The one which is going to slowly release your blood sugar level is going to be low glycemic index. So you go low glycemic index. So the pure glucose is 100. So and then the low glycemic index is under 55, and 55 to 70 is the moderate glycemic index. So I think your oats is in the moderate, and your chickpeas in the low glycemic index, and the watermelon and the dates is in the high glycemic index. And the glycemic load is generally the one depends on the quantity you eat. So for example, the watermelon may have a high glycemic index, but if you're only eating a little bit, it's not going to impact a whole lot on the blood sugar level. So how much fiber we need in a day? We need around 30 to 35 grams of fiber. What are the benefits of the fiber? It helps to manage the weight. It prevents certain cancer, especially the colon cancer. It's good for the heart health. It can help to reduce the heart attack rate by dropping the blood lipids such as your cholesterol, and it also good for the gastrointestinal health. So the way it works is the fiber actually slow down the absorption of the carbohydrates, so your blood sugar level, it doesn't spike that much, and which can prevent the weight gain, especially the fat gain. So yes guys, I think that's pretty much about the carbs. And as I said, that how much you need, that you have to see how much you need according to your goal. And that's my formula. I take it, as I explained before, I take it 1 gram of protein per kilo of body weight, 0.5 grams of fat per kilo of body weight, and the rest I just manipulate from 2 to 7 grams of the carbs to see how my body is working. If you have any questions regarding the carbohydrates, please put it in a comment and I will get back to you. And and if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do it now. And enjoy guys. Thanks.